AI could inundate academia with more papers, faster analyses, and polished yet predictable prose. But that may be only a transitional phase. If authors use AI to pre-review their work and reviewers use AI to evaluate it, then it is easier to produce routine academic performance and less useful as a signal of quality. Writing still counts, but polish is not a mark of expertise. This is EconWorks. In this episode, we discuss the symmetric loop between authors and reviewers, short-run problem of AI slop, long-run movement of intellectual value to original observations, institutional knowledge, human judgment, and accountable research.
If you've ever stood in an elevator with mirrors on both sides, you get that, dizzying infinite hallway effect.
Oh, yeah, the reflection of a reflection.
Right, exactly. You look to your left, and there is a reflection of a reflection just, looping endlessly into the dark. And today, that exact same infinite loop is actually happening to human knowledge.
It really is, yeah.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a really fascinating piece of source material from EconWorks today. Specifically, it's an article titled The Symmetric Loop, which comes from episode 2.5 of their series, The Age of AI.
And there is a lot to cover in this one.
It really is. And our mission for you on this deep dive is to try to figure out what happens to expertise when writing, researching, and reviewing are all suddenly automated.
Which is happening right now.
Exactly. So here's the question I want you to hold in your mind as we go through this. If an artificial intelligence writes a complex research paper, and then another artificial intelligence reviews that paper, what is the human actually doing?
Yeah, that really is the defining question of this entire new era. And I mean, to answer it, we have to recognize that right now we are sitting in a very messy, chaotic transitional phase.
Messy is definitely the word for it.
Totally. The source material actually bluntly refers to this current period as the era of AI slop.
AI slop, wow.
Yeah, we were just flooded with it. But, that slop is not the end of the story. The ultimate destination of this technology is going to fundamentally change what we value in human intellect and what it even means to be an expert in literally any field whatsoever.
Right, so we have to navigate the slop to get to the destination. But I think to understand where knowledge creation is going, we first have to establish just how blindingly fast these tools are evolving right now.
Oh, the speed is just unprecedented.
The timeline the article lays out is genuinely wild. They highlight this survey of quantitative social scientists, and it was conducted by Anthropic in May of 2026. So the survey found that 81% of these researchers had tried an AI chatbot in their work, but only 20% regularly used what they call command line agents.
Right, the agents.
Yeah, and for anyone not coding every day, these are tools like Claude Code, Codex, or Cursor,
Yes.
Basically systems that integrate directly into your computer's terminal to write and execute software entirely autonomously.
And, at first glance, you look at that 20% figure and you might think, okay, it represents a decent chunk of early adopters, but maybe not a total revolution just yet.
Right. 20% doesn't sound like everyone.
Exactly. However, the source material points out a staggering reality about the timeline of this specific data. The survey responses were actually collected in late February and March of 2026.
Okay, so a few months before May.
Right. And in traditional academia, or honestly even corporate research, data that is 2 or 3 months old is practically breaking news. It's super fresh.
Yeah, usually you're waiting years for peer review.
Exactly. But in the context of artificial intelligence, that data was already considered a historical relic by the time it was published in May.
Wow.
It was describing a stage of adoption that was actively vanishing as they were printing the results.
It's like trying to measure the speed of a rocket while you're standing on the launch pad, and by the time you look down at your stopwatch, the rocket is literally already in orbit.
That's a great way to put it.
And the financial metrics they shared in the source just prove the speed. I mean, they track Anthropic's annualized revenue run rate. And in February of 2026, it was sitting at $14 billion.
Which is already massive.
Huge. But by April, just 2 months later, it jumped to over $30 billion.
Unbelievable.
And by May, it hit $47 billion. Oh, and Claude Code alone, which is just one of those coding agents you mentioned. Researchers were starting to use that single product surpass a $2.5 billion run rate by February.
And, while not all of that revenue is coming from academic researchers, obviously.
Right, mostly enterprise, right?
Yeah, a massive portion is enterprise demand and just general software developers. But it perfectly illustrates the sheer velocity of the transition taking place in the background of our entire economy.
Yeah.
Like, the survey wasn't factually wrong. It was just measuring a target moving at supersonic speed. The ground was quite literally shifting under these researchers' feet as they were, filling out the survey.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this shift isn't just about more people using the tools or even the companies making billions more dollars. It is a fundamental shift in what the tools actually do.
Yes, the nature of the work.
Right. The source talks about moving from AI as an assistant to AI as an operating layer. And the way I think about it, it's like we are upgrading from having a really smart calculator on our desks to hiring an invisible, sleepless lab manager.
Oh, I like that. An invisible lab manager.
Yeah, because, an assistant just answers a question, you ask it. But an operating layer. This invisible lab manager can actually inspect your computer's directories. It can read your raw data, execute a complex statistical analysis.
And correct itself.
Exactly. It can realize it made a coding error, fix that error on its own, and then run 100 robustness checks, basically stress testing the math to make sure the results hold up even if you tweak the underlying assumptions. And it does all of this while you go get a coffee. It manages the whole pipeline.
What's fascinating here is that invisible lab manager analogy captures it perfectly. You are moving from asking for isolated, one-off help to essentially supervising an end-to-end automated process.
Right. You're the manager now.
Exactly. And it makes research incredibly fast and exponentially cheaper to produce. I mean, data cleaning and formatting, which, used to take months of grueling labor for graduate students, now takes hours.
Right. The grunt work is gone.
But the efficiency isn't even the most important consequence here.
It's not.
No, not at all. The real disruption, the truly seismic shift, happens when this operating layer exists on both sides of the desk.
Because if you have an invisible, tireless lab manager optimizing your work, the person grading your work probably has one too. And that creates this bizarre high-tech standoff. It is what the article calls the symmetric loop.
Let's trace how that loop actually operates in the wild, because it's pretty mind-bending. Imagine you are an author preparing to submit a manuscript to a prestigious journal.
Okay, I'm the author.
In the past, you would proofread it, maybe ask a trusted colleague to poke holes in your methodology over a beer.
Right, the human review.
But today, you ask your AI agent to simulate a panel of highly skeptical reviewers. You instruct it to look for inconsistent definitions, coding mistakes, missing citations.
Like a pretest.
Exactly. You might even ask one instance of the AI to act like a grumpy econometrician, a reviewer obsessed purely with the statistical math, and another to act like a specialized editor looking for narrative flow.
Wow.
The AI rewrites your overstated passages, proposes new statistical tests, and just completely optimizes the paper against literally any known academic critique.
So it's like playing chess against yourself before the real tournament. You have already simulated every single move the human judge might make and adjusted your strategy accordingly.
That is a great way to look at it. So you have this incredibly polished, optimized piece of work, but then you submit it to the journal. And the journal hands it over to a peer reviewer.
Okay.
What does that reviewer do?
Yeah.
They use their own AI operating layer.
Of course they do.
The reviewer's AI reads your manuscript, compares it to the entire existing literature, scrutinizes your empirical strategy, and generates a massive preliminary report of flaws. So the writer's AI is actively anticipating the reviewer's AI, while the reviewer's AI is checking work that has already been meticulously optimized by the writer's AI.
That is the infinite hallway of mirrors, the reflection of a reflection we talked about at the start.
Exactly.
And this isn't some science fiction hypothetical.
Yeah.
The source brings up a staggering statistic from the AAAI 26 conference to prove this is happening right now.
Hey, this statistic is incredible.
At this massive artificial intelligence conference, an AI system provided a preliminary review for all 22,977 papers that reached full review.
Nearly 23,000 papers.
22,000 papers. And it did this in under a single day.
The nuance of that event, though, is what makes it so critical to our understanding. When they actually surveyed the people involved, the AI reviews actually scored higher than human reviews on finding technical errors and suggesting improvements to the research design.
Wait, really? Better than the humans?
On technical errors, yes. But the AI reviews overlapped heavily with each other. They exhibited recurring blind spots when it came to highly specialized niche knowledge, and they were obsessed with minor pedantic issues that didn't actually change the core findings at all.
So they were kind of missing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. The AI made the review process much more thorough, but it did not necessarily make it more discerning.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Because if I'm listening to this, I might be thinking, if an AI can review 22,000 papers in a day, and it finds valid technical errors that human reviewers actually missed, why is this a problem? Isn't more thoroughness, fewer mathematical errors, and, more efficiency a strictly good thing for science and for society?
Well, it is absolutely a good thing for identifying basic objective errors, but it introduces a massive short-run problem, which is the AI slop we mentioned earlier.
The slop.
Right. Because the cost of execution has plummeted to near zero, we are going to see an absolute flood of output. Researchers will finish projects they previously abandoned because, the manual labor was just too high.
Fair.
And some of that will be great, but a huge percentage of it will be plausible, highly polished, technically decorated work that actually contains zero original contribution. The cost of producing a paper that simply looks brilliant has fallen much faster than our human ability to filter it out.
And because of that symmetric loop, the papers are actively learning how to trick the filters.
Exactly. They adapt.
I have to share this experiment from the source because it completely blew my mind. In June of 2026, researchers ran a test. They took a batch of papers, and they simply had an AI rewrite the abstracts. Just the summaries at the very beginning of the paper.
Just the abstracts.
Right. They did not change a single piece of the underlying scientific content. They didn't touch the data, and they didn't alter the conclusions. Just the wording of the abstract.
And the results were crazy.
Doing that significantly boosted the scores assigned by AI reviewers for about 38% of the papers. And even crazier, for papers that the AI had initially recommended for rejection, just rewriting the abstract boosted their scores over 50% of the time.
The mechanism behind that is what is truly fascinating. The AI reviewers in this experiment were essentially operating on a linguistic bias.
Like they liked the style.
Basically, they equated fluent, confident, standardized prose with actual scientific accuracy. They have a bias towards specific linguistic tokens that sound authoritative. Yep. It shows that papers can now be explicitly optimized against the mechanical preferences of the machines grading them. The entire ecosystem just adapts to exploit those algorithmic blind spots.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Because this goes way beyond academic publishing.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about evaluating a vendor's pitch deck at work, or reading a beautifully formatted news article, or judging a cover letter for a job applicant. Historically, we relied on observable features as signals of unobservable qualities.
Right.
Like, if a proposal had clear, beautiful prose, it signaled that the author cared deeply and thought clearly. If it had clean formatting and 50 citations, it signaled hard work and deep knowledge.
But those traditional signals only worked because of scarcity. It is basic economics. Those features carried weight because they were extremely costly to produce in terms of time, education, and human effort.
They were hard to fake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
AI completely obliterates that cost.
Right. When anyone can just click a button and generate fluent prose, gorgeous charts, or a dozen robustness checks, that formatting tells you absolutely nothing about the author's actual expertise or judgment. The polish is just a commodity now.
The source material makes a critical distinction here, actually. There is a difference between communication value and signaling value.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, AI grammatically improves the communication value of a document. It makes a dense report easier to read, the tables are clearer, the grammar is perfect. That is genuinely helpful for you as the reader.
Right, it's pleasant to read.
But AI destroys the signaling value. The polish no longer proves that the person who generated it is competent. This is why AI slop is a self-defeating equilibrium in the long run.
How so?
Slop undermines the exact signals, the fluent prose, the dense citations that it relies on to look credible in the first place. Once readers realize that polish is cheap, they just stop trusting it entirely.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question for anyone whose job involves thinking or analyzing information. If a beautifully written, perfectly formatted, mathematically dense document no longer proves that you are an expert, what does? Where does the value go?
The value relocates. It shifts toward what remains difficult to manufacture. When execution becomes abundant and cheap, the premium moves to the inputs that are still incredibly scarce.
Makes sense.
And the source highlights 4 specific areas of enduring value, and they all revolve around friction and the physical world.
Okay, so the first one they mentioned is proximity to the data generating process.
Yeah.
And, this makes so much sense when you think about it.
Oh, totally.
In the social sciences, or even in corporate analytics, ground truth is rarely a perfect spreadsheet. It is usually a messy data set filled with human compromises. The value lies in the tacit, on-the-ground knowledge of how those observations were created in the first place.
Consider something like an administrative category in a data set. Let's say a hospital codes a specific patient outcome under a certain label. An AI, looking at that database, just takes the label as absolute truth and runs its statistical models. But the human who actually works at the hospital knows that the staff only uses that specific code because it's the only one the insurance company will reimburse, not because it accurately reflects the medical reality.
It is the broken thermostat analogy.
Right.
If the thermostat in the office breaks and blasts the heat to 90 degrees, the employees just prop the exterior doors open in the middle of winter to cool off.
A typical human solution.
Exactly. And the AI looks at the sensor data, sees a massive temperature spike in an open door, and assumes there is a fire. But the human knows it's just a broken dial. An AI cannot automatically acquire the years of institutional knowledge about the flawed human systems that actually produce our data.
And that leads directly to the second scarce resource, original observation. You cannot analyze what you cannot see. The most valuable input is a fact that simply does not exist in a massive language model's training data.
Because if it's in the training data, everyone already has access to it.
Exactly that. So where do you find original observation? It could be proprietary corporate data, but it also means neglected physical archives in a basement somewhere.
Right, the stuff that isn't digitized.
Yes.
Yeah.
It means face-to-face interviews. It means going to a local town hall meeting to understand a changing zoning rule. You have to go out into the physical, high-friction world and find something the machine hasn't scraped yet.
The third pillar of value is human judgment. And this is a big one.
Huge.
Because AI is phenomenal at identifying anomalies in data. It can spot 100 statistical outliers in a second. But it does not know which of those anomalies actually matter to humans.
Research and analysis require judgment about what deserves our time. A machine can tell you a result is statistically significant down to a fraction of a percent. But it takes a human to know if that statistical blip actually translates to an economically or socially meaningful change in the real world.
Right.
The true scarce contribution is the human decision to pursue a weird, counterintuitive question long before the existing literature confirms that it is a question worth asking.
And the fourth and final pillar is accountability. This is where the real-world stakes come in. Ultimately, someone has to sign their name to the work.
Yes, the liability.
Let's say a medical AI recommends a controversial treatment plan based on its analysis, or an algorithm recommends a massive shift in economic policy.
Yeah.
Who evaluated the trade-offs of that decision? Who is going to stand at a podium, look their peers in the eye, and defend that interpretation when it inevitably gets challenged?
Because you cannot put a software pipeline on trial.
No, you can't.
You cannot fire an algorithm. If something goes wrong, a human has to take the fall. That assumption of risk, that human signature, becomes incredibly valuable because responsibility fundamentally cannot be automated.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I'm looking at how all these pieces fit together, the AI writing, the AI reviewing, the optimization. If everyone in a given field is using the exact same AI tools to perfectly optimize their papers, won't every paper eventually start to sound exactly the same?
That is the grand paradox of this entire system.
Yeah.
The research points out that while AI can make every individual paper much better executed, better written, clearer data visualizations, more robust tests, it makes academic research as a whole far more predictable and homogeneous.
It all blends together.
They converge on this perfectly acceptable, highly standardized average of thought.
So it raises the floor of quality, but it flattens the ceiling.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally redefines your job as a knowledge worker. Your job is no longer to write the perfect, smooth narrative.
Because the AI does that.
Right. The AI can generate a smooth, logical story around almost any data point you feed it. Your job, the human's job, is to notice the weird, messy, uncomfortable, real-world observations that explicitly do not fit into the AI's standard story.
It changes everything about how we prove what we know. Which means This whole system of publishing and sharing knowledge is going to have to change its
Well,
focus.
completely.
If the final polished PDF is no longer reliable proof of good science, if it is just cheap signaling, then the entire system has to shift its focus from the end product to the messy process itself.
The static manuscript will no longer be the object that journals actually evaluate. A conventional paper compresses years of difficult, chaotic work into 20 neat pages.
Right.
But the real research exists in the underlying files. It is in the data transformations, the field notes, the rejected specifications, and the prompt logs. Journals and institutions are going to have to review the entire research process, not just the final description of it.
So it's going to look a lot more like software verification.
Exactly.
Imagine you are an engineer looking at open source code. You don't just read a summary that says this code works. You look at the version history, you look at every single change that was made, you see exactly where the human judgment entered the equation.
Yes.
The polished paper becomes just the explanation of what you did,
Yes.
but it is no longer the proof that you did it correctly.
We are moving from a system of evaluation based on trust and polish to a system based on traceability and process verification.
Which brings us to this incredible ultimate irony that the source material leaves us with. The acceleration of digital research, the massive influx of artificial intelligence into every step of thinking and writing it, actually forces return to reality.
It really does.
Because the digital stuff is infinite and cheap, it puts an absolute premium on knowing how the physical, messy, irrational real world actually works. AI makes it incredibly easy to produce a paper, but does not make it any easier to have something genuinely worth saying.
It is a profound realization about where our value truly lies, and it leaves us with something vital to consider about our own relationship with these tools. In a world where artificial intelligence can perfectly execute any logical task you give it, the most valuable scientific asset of the future might just be human intuition, that irrational, messy gut feeling that tells you to look under a rock that the algorithms completely ignored. What counterintuitive question are you ignoring right now simply because a machine hasn't told you it is important yet?
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Econ Works. The goal of this series is to move beyond the surface-level descriptions of how markets work and start looking at the actual architecture of competition. We'll be back soon with another look at where the law and economics meet the market. For the full technical analysis and more from this series, visit us at econworks.com. If you found today's breakdown valuable, please subscribe and share the show. It helps us keep the analysis independent. From all of us here at Econ Works, thanks for listening.